And just like that, it's Friday. Friday-luya to you. It's Mike Opelka. Mike Opelka, not Michael Pelka. Mike Opelka sitting in for Vince Coglianese here on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. What a day. What a day. Normally Fridays, yeah, everybody's hitting the road, headed to the Chesapeake Bay or wherever they go to escape. And not today. Not today. A lot of people had to stay late. That makes me feel good because when I'm working late, I want other people working late. The news of attorney David Weiss being appointed as a special counsel in the investigation into Hunter Biden has some shocked, some not shocked. But there are a lot of furrowed brows and a lot of questions that need to be answered as it relates to this. So we reached out to one of the better brains out there in this whole and entire world. I believe that. I don't think that's exaggeration. Hans Von Spakovsky has been here before. Hans is the manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative and senior legal fellow at the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. Hans, it is great to have you here. Thanks for making time for us.
Well, Mike, thanks for having me. And sorry you're working on a Friday, but then so am I.
You know, I am never sorry to be working. I truly am. I'm happy to be here. There's some days I'll grouse quietly if it's interrupting my golf game, but no golf plan this afternoon. So I'm thrilled to be here. Hans, before we get into this, one of the vast and unpaid resource members here at the radio station has sent us something from section, let's see here, section 600.3 about the special counsel. Are you aware that this whole thing may be illegal?
Well, yeah. In fact, look, Cully Stimson and I just finished an op-ed, a blog on this, which hopefully will go up soon, in which we point out that if you look at the Justice Department regulation, and look, we're really familiar with them because we're both former Justice Department lawyers, it calls for an outside special counsel. In other words, someone who is not a current Justice Department employee. And the reason for that is because, look, there's an inherent conflict of interest when any employee within the Justice Department is investigating the son of their ultimate boss, the president. And yet what does Garland do? He appoints David Weiss, who is currently a Justice Department employee, U.S. attorney in Delaware, and by the way, has so far, either through incompetence or intentional actions, totally botched the Hunter Biden prosecution.
Look, Hans, I have my law degree from watching Judge Judy every day for 20 years when she was on TV. And I think with that in mind, I think I could have had a more successful prosecution of Hunter Biden in Delaware on the tax case, on the gun case alone, on the lying on a federal form. Right there. I could have figured that out. A guy who educated himself on the law while serving a 20-year sentence in prison on online education could have done that. And this seems like we are rewarding incompetence, or there's something else behind it. Is it more about rewarding the incompetence, or is it about blocking David Weiss from testifying in front of any House committee?
Oh, I think it is both that, and I think it's, as we were about to say, a cynical move. I think it's designed to obfuscate and delay further investigation, prosecution of Hunter Biden. And for those who are questioning what we're talking about, when I say incompetence or intentional wrongdoing, I could just name you one thing after another, and it's not just Weiss, but it's also the lawyers that work for him. You know, for example, the lawyer working for him, an assistant AUSA, who refused to approve a search warrant for the guest quarters at Joe Biden's home in Delaware, where Hunter Biden had been living, even though she admitted they had all the evidence they needed to get a search warrant. Why? Well, because it would make the president look bad. Or that same lawyer apparently when the IRS agents came to them and say, look, we just found out Hunter Biden's got a storage unit in Northern Virginia. We need to search it for potential evidence. What does she do? She called up Hunter Biden's lawyers and told them about it, giving them time to clear it out. And listen, I don't care which side of the political aisle they're on. You talk to any former Justice Department prosecutor or veteran of the department, and they will tell you they just could not believe the plea deal that Weiss was giving to Hunter Biden, in which for evading taxes for 2 years, not paying upwards of $1.6 million, he was going to get probation. And he was also going to be allowed to walk away from that gun charge. Not only that, but think about this, which is either intentional or incompetent too, Mike. Remember, he was only being charged for 2 years of evading taxes, but he evaded several years before that. And yet, Weiss allowed the statute of limitations to run so that Hunter Biden couldn't be charged.
So he's basically been given a free pass on at least the tax charges. Although, Hans, we're now hearing that those charges or some charges could be filed in, either California and D.C. Does that mean that Hunter's lawyers can stand up in court and say, I'm sorry, the statute of limitations has run out. You have to dismiss these cases?
Yes, if the statutes run on whatever they want to bring. But look, I mean, here's another instance of how they're letting him slide. I actually yesterday I went to the Justice Department website and I checked the office there that prosecutes violations of the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Right, that's the federal law that says if you're representing a foreign entity, you've got to register with the federal government. In the last 5 years, they've prosecuted successfully 3 individuals in one law firm, all of whom for the same thing, representing Ukrainian interests, right?
Oh my God.
The evidence that Hunter Biden violated FARA is absolutely blatant and overwhelming, and yet he hasn't been charged under that law. And remember, at the plea deal hearing that fell apart, when the judge asked the Justice Department, well, is he still being investigated? The DOJ lawyers popped up and said, well, yeah, he is. I can tell you another thing. No competent federal prosecutor would ever agree to enter into a plea deal on some charges against a defendant if they're still actually investigating other potential charges. You just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, this whole thing stinks on ice, and I hate to use legal terms like that. This smacks of preferential treatment for the young man who was then the son of the vice president, now the son of the president, and they keep going back to, well, he had drug problems. And he had some other problems with the loss of, his brother died, Joe Biden's son died, and they still love their son. I'm sorry, I don't know any section of the U.S. Code that allows for an exemption, the grief exemption, to forgive crimes. Did I miss that, Hans?
No, absolutely not. And certainly not serious felony charges. And let me tell you, allowing Hunter Biden to supposedly plea to only 2 misdemeanor charges when he didn't pay upwards of, like I said, over $1.5 million in federal taxes, Mike, you and I would never get a deal like that. Neither would any other regular American if we evaded paying that much money in taxes.
Hans, I have a friend who won a $100,000 football pool years ago, forgot to report it.
Right.
He spent 5 months in a federal medium security institution, which it's hell. And then he had to spend 5 months at home with federal jewelry on his ankle, if you know what I mean. He was allowed out 6 hours a day to go do a little work. So $100,000, he got 5 months. If we were to do the math on that, Hunter would be in behind bars for at least 50 months just for what he didn't pay taxes on.
That is absolutely right, and that is why. Look, in essence, the Justice Department was giving him the monopoly equivalent of a get-out-of-jail-free card, and that's one of the reasons I think the judge refused to agree to the plea agreement and basically said to the Justice Department, "You mean you want me to just rubber stamp this?" And she refused to do it. Now, maybe she'll do it when they appear before him again, but I have a hard time believing that's going to happen.
So where do you think this goes if this is in fact a violation of the U.S. Code? If this situation really is, as you've said and as we've seen, we quoted chapter and verse that special counsel shall agree that their responsibilities shall take precedent in their professional lives, yada yada yada, and the final thing that you cannot be a part of the DOJ. Do you think someone makes that claim and says you can't do this? You have to appoint someone from outside of the government?
Well, nobody can force the Attorney General to do that. The only thing that can happen is the House of Representatives can give him a really hard time over this, not only through investigative hearings, but also through budget cuts to Garland's office. But they don't have the ability to force him to comply with what's going on. On the other hand, the ultimate power that the House has, they can either use their budgeting power or they can use the impeachment power.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. They were reluctant to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary, and I don't know if they're going to go this far. But it's just, why have laws if the guy who's at the head of the agency doesn't have to follow them? That sounds a lot like some sort of a banana republic to me.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And think about how all this, in which they're trying to minimize the charges against Hunter Biden, refuse to investigate the corruption allegations, very serious ones, made against Joe Biden, going on at the very same time. They are trying to maximize the charges against Donald Trump, a former president of the United States. First time that's happened in our history. And look, I wrote a detailed analysis of that indictment, and I can tell you the federal indictment against Donald Trump is totally bogus.
You're talking about the January 6th indictment from, we're calling Jack Smith Jackula because he's Dracula to me.
Yes. Yes, it's not only a bogus indictment. He is trying to use federal statutes that he says that Donald Trump violated in a way that the U.S. Supreme Court has said you cannot do.
Well, it does seem very bizarre that the DOJ has its foot on the accelerator on the investigation into and the indictments of Donald Trump, and its foot on the brakes when it comes to any investigations, possible indictments of anyone in the Biden family. And that seems to be obvious to all. But nothing we can do will change it. We just have to live with it.
Unfortunately, yes. Like I said, there are some things the House can do. And frankly, there needs to be public criticism and public pressure because that obviously is part of what's led to what Merrick Garland did today. Because, look, remember, 5 months ago, Garland testified that he had told Weiss, look, you got full authority to do whatever you want. Well, if that was true, why 5 months later is he suddenly saying, oh, well, no, Weiss is a special counsel. He's got full authority to do whatever do. What's changed? Nothing's changed other than the politics and the public criticism of them for not conducting a thorough investigation and prosecution.
Yeah, the only thing that's changed is we now have more evidence. We actually have bank records. We have videotape, audio tape. We have photos. We have eyewitness testimony. What's changed is it looks like this is an open and shut case. Hans, I cannot thank you enough for spending time with us breaking it down. I hope Congress does the right thing, cut off the money, because if the now special counsel, U.S. Attorney David Weiss, can't pay anybody or can't afford to do his investigations, maybe we'll have to have somebody replace him. I'm dubious, but, a boy can dream, Hans. A boy can dream.
Well, yeah, we all can. So, all right. Well, thanks for having me on.
It is 27 minutes after 4 o'clock. Mike Opelka is my name, in for Vince Coglianese here on this Friday. Friday Luya to you. Just a little bit of time to share a little bit of madness with you. The lexicon is under attack again in England. The University of Surrey has reported and told the student body, stop using terms like black sheep and dark web. Those are now offensive. Those are toxic language. You can't say someone's the black sheep of the family anymore. No, you have to say they're the renegade of the family. And in terms of, you can't say somebody who's black and blue. No, you have to say bruised. And we can't say Indian summer either. You're supposed to say late summer. But there's a reason for the language, isn't there? We have to end the wokeness, don't we? Yes, we do. Mike Opelka in for Vince Coglianese on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. And welcome to it, the Vince Coglianese Show. Mike Opelka in for Vince today, this Friday. Friday Luya to you. We are celebrating the weekend's arrival. We're also dealing with all of the news, and there is a bunch of it. Not only the announcement of the special prosecutor, but the judge in the D.C. case, the federal case against Donald John Trump, the former president. The hearing today regarding a protective order. The judge issued a protective order which effectively bars Mr. Trump from publicly disclosing sensitive information in the 2020 case. Now, that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. Wiggle room, if you will. There's no gag order, which is a good thing. But we'll see how this shakes out. I think Mr. Trump is smart enough to handle the media. I think the former president proved that. And earlier I said I'd be very careful what I wish for if I were the Democrats, saying, well, let's get all these cases on TV. Let's have the cameras in the courtrooms. I think I think you're outmatched there in understanding of the television medium. We saw just how badly Democrats handled TV cameras in the previous attempts with the House and the House committee and the primetime hearings. They even paid an ABC News producer to come in and executive produce it. And it was boring and pointless. But a lot of you don't agree with me. And you're welcome to disagree at any time. 888-630-9625. In fact, Dave in Alexandria is calling with a thought on this. Dave, welcome to the program, sir.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. Happy you're here. So you're not like me. You don't think everything should be televised?
Yeah, well, I have concerns. The judges and the prosecutors, while they may all be idiots, they're a cut above your usual idiots, and their questions are going to be sort of so tactical that Mr. Trump will be advised to, we only need a yes or a no answer here. Or if he wants to get into one of his monologues, they're going to say, Mr. Trump, just answer the question. And he may not have the opportunity to properly answer the question as we would like him to. So, I mean, that's my concern.
Well, it's a fair point. I don't think it's like a congressional hearing where we're going to have Maxine Waters going, reclaiming my time. Not that incident, but I could see someone saying we just need a yes or a no here. And depending on this judge, and we already know where the judge leans from her past and her political contributions. Okay, so that said now, Dave, where do you stand on should President Trump, the former president, appear at the upcoming debate, the first one at least?
I'm torn. I mean, I understand why he's pushing back. In this case, I would go with his gut instinct and what he feels best. I think Trump supporters understand why he's doing it. Independents, if they've been paying attention to the news and the one-sidedness of all this, the persecution actually, then I think the general public may have a better understanding, and it's just not showing up in the polls. I mean, it's showing up in Republican polls, but you have to worry about the general polls in the general election. I mean, he has our support. He's not going to lose our support. No one's going to vote for Michael Putz, former vice president.
I do. I think Michael Putz has a great campaign going, though. I think we should investigate him further. Nice random candidate there.
On the radio.
I like that, Dave. One of the things that I look at when I look at the possibility or not of the former president on that debate stage, if you compare it to, a friend of mine compared it to prize fighting. If you're the champ and someone qualifies to face off against you, you have to fight them. So if the RNC is the agency that decides who gets to face the champ, then technically they all should have to. But I also understand the Trump analysis. He's so far ahead. He can only lose if he shows up. He has nothing to gain, whereas the rest of them are all swinging for the fences or trying to get that one haymaker in there to knock him out with one shot. And Chris Christie's coming with a satchel full of insults, and he's going to try and get off a one-liner somewhere. So I go back and forth on it. I just think it would be a huge opportunity, or let me say that in Trump speak. I think it would be a huge opportunity for him to dig into all the indictments and really lay bare some of the things that he would like to say, even within the restrictions of the current statement from the judge today. So I'm going to ride this out until we get closer and see what happens. But I'll watch either way, even though it won't be as entertaining without Mr. Trump. But I will watch either way. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you being there. Danny in D.C. has a completely different topic to address, but while we're on the phones, let's go there. Danny, welcome to the program. What is on your mind?
Hey, Mike, how are you doing? Long time no talk to. Last night, I was listening to Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. That would be Anthony, and he was explaining this prisoner swap with Iran for the money that's being held in Korea, and him and his wannabe Ace Ventura style talking was, and there are 6 prisoners that we are making a swap for, and one of them has been in custody since the previous administration and in custody for 8 years, and no one's picked up on it. Dude, Trump wasn't president 8 years ago, so don't do the previous administration. You could say a previous administration, but the previous administration you're talking to is the Obama administration, where he did nothing to get that man out of confinement in Iran. But yet he was the one that secured them to have all that money returned to them and end the sanctions. And it's like Joe Biden's entire cabinet is so stupid. It's stupid.
Well, it's a DEI hire. It's a diversity, equity, and inclusion hires, every single one of them. I don't think you can name a single one that doesn't have either a box checking to them or a scandal tied to them. I just look at Jennifer Granholm. We now learned this week that Granholm was in the business of trading stocks on companies that she was helping get favorable government deals. And maybe not her, but her family, which is yet another reason why we need to have complete blockage of anyone in a cabinet position or an elected office in the Congress from doing any kind of trading. They're all using us. So I'm with you on this, but this is a fascinating thing here. And they're calling it a prisoner swap. But if there's money involved, isn't this really technically endorsing kidnapping of Americans around the world because this is now ransom?
Well, that's exactly what it is. It's ransom being paid for them for a previous administration. That would be the Trump administration, freezing their assets along with 7 other countries.
Yeah.
But the thing that really kills me is that this complete douche of an AG, Merrick Garland, has just appointed special counsel to the same guy that allowed the statute of limitations to run out on Hunter Biden down in Delaware, and now he's going to make him special counsel over the Hunter Biden suite deal that he actually, because he did allow the statute of limitations to run, is how he got such a great deal. And then all of a sudden this judge in Delaware was like, oh, hold the phone. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, we're not going down this road. And now Merrick Garland has appointed that same guy to be the special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden. Now,
it's so obvious.
Any different?
It is so obvious.
How is it going to be any different?
It's not, and we've just spent pretty much the last hour and a half saying the same thing because it's infuriating. If this had been a situation under President Trump and a U.S. attorney had allowed the statute of limitations to run out on an investigation, they would have been fired, as the U.S. Attorney's Office had told you can't work here anymore. But instead, under a Democrat administration, you get promoted. Danny, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for pointing out the 8-year timeline.
Michael, we're in a lot of trouble unless things change in 24.
Well, we have 450 days to make a change, so everybody stay aware, stay awake. 450 days, it's going to be here before you know it.
Remember to duck and cover, too, because there's 450 days.
Yeah, that's true, but I'm charging. I'm going for it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being there.
You're welcome.
Fired up. I like it when everybody's fired up. That's excellent. Good stuff there. We have so many things to get to today. As I said, in about almost 30 minutes, maybe a little sooner, we're going to talk with my friend Will Kane from over at Fox News about what's happening in Hawaii. The governor is now saying 80% of Lahaina is gone. I hope I'm saying that right. The historic area of Maui. And we're now hearing that Jeff Bezos is going through his couch cushions and pledging $100 million for Maui recovery. Good for him. I don't often have good things to say about Jeff Bezos. As a matter of fact, you might circle the date on your calendar. This might be the first time. But I'm always happy when those super wealthy guys go in their pockets and say, all right, let's lead by example. But we'll get an update from Will because he has family in the area. And there are myriad places you can go to send your shekels to support the people of Hawaii. And the people, it looks 80% of this historic region is completely gone. It is. I'm just waiting for the blame. The blame on your gas stove or, I don't know, the car you drive, the leaf blower, your charcoal grill in the backyard. Yeah, it's coming, because they're going to blame us for a hurricane in the South Pacific that came across, and the winds blew the wildfires. Speaking of that, there was a story earlier this week. I talked about this earlier this week in a different radio operation about the real reason for the hot summer. We've had a hot summer. Some are saying that it's because of our addiction to fossil fuels. And yet NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Agency, NASA and the European Space Agency have identified the real cause. The real cause has to do with a volcano that erupted in January of 2022. So it's almost a year and 9 months ago, a year and 8 months ago, a gigantic volcano underwater near the island of Tonga erupted, and it spewed water into the stratosphere, enough water to fill 78,000 Olympic swimming pools, according to the NASA estimates. This isn't from some far-right, conservative, anti-climate change group. No, this is from NASA and their satellites that monitor such stuff. So you had an underwater volcano 500 feet below the surface of the South Pacific, a giant eruption. And it spewed water, not particulates, not ash, like you saw with Mount St. Helens or Krakatoa or Pinatubo, any of those surface volcanoes. This sent water up into the stratosphere, 5,000 to 33,000 feet above the surface of the planet. That water acted like basically a magnifier, and it created the conditions, and super humidity up in the stratosphere created the conditions for the heat wave, the ongoing heat wave. And NASA, as well as the European Space Agency, have confirmed this. If it would have been surface volcano and the particulates, the ash, would have gone up into the air, it would have actually cooled the planet, would have reflected the sun's rays back. Instead, the water has intensified. Think about putting take a clear plastic bag, like a sandwich bag, clear sandwich bag, and put water in it and make it tight, tie it up tight, and hold it up to the sun and focus it. You can actually start a fire if you're out in the woods using that. That's kind of the principle that's going on here. And NASA says it's going to be there for a couple of years. So get ready for heat waves. We're going to have some hot summers. And get ready for the left to try and say, well, you have to stop using your fossil fuel powered cars. You have to stop using gas stoves. You have to stop using leaf blowers. That's not going to do anything. It's all about what actually happened with science, not with the attempts to control you. I've posted links to it. I'll put another link up. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and you can see these stories. We have to have some fun with Kamala Harris as well, just because we can. And she's out saying stupid things again, as I said, in my old hometown of Chicago. I'll share them with you. And you're welcome to join us, too. 888-630-9625 is the number. It is the Vince Coglianese Show. Vince out today. Mike Opelka is my name. Happy to be here. Thrilled to be here, actually. And you're welcome at any time. 888-630-9625. I promised you it's not all me grousing about the egregious appointment of a special counsel, especially breaking the law, as it were. But, if you're in charge of the law, you don't care if you break the law. And I promised you we'd have a little fun with Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, just in case you didn't know. She was on with Al Sharpton, who will not get a religious title from me ever, because he's not. She was on MSNBC with Al Sharpton when he asked her about the first thing she thinks of when she wakes up in the morning.
Our democracy. Rev, I think everything is at stake right now.
Well, that's odd, because this is the first time that Kamala Harris and I agree on something. Everything is at stake right now. Everything.
The cackling nincompoop who is a heartbeat away from the presidency, the comprehensively incapable Kamala Harris.
Yes, she was in Chicago at the Gun Sense event. Yeah, they had Gun Sense happening in Chicago, a place where it's harder to get a gun than just about anywhere else in the country, and yet people are getting gunned down just about every day there. So much to the point that Chicago actually has a very interactive website called HeyJackass.com, which tabulates all the murders in Chicago. And there was Kamala getting everybody whipped up.
Your generation is critical. Is critical. Is critical to this issue. You are critical to this issue. We are counting on you. We need you. You are critical to this issue. You are everything. Everything.
I thought we were critical.
Everything.
I thought we were critical. All right. Will Kane joins me next on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.